Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. Hey, Thriving Farmers. Michael Kilpatrick here with yet another episode of the Thriving Farmer Podcast. And today my guest is Shawn Patrick House, CEO of Lancaster Trading House and creator of Hempzels, the original hemp pretzel. With over 30 years in the hemp industry, Shawn has pioneered innovative hemp products from pretzels to dairy-free ice cream and is a passionate advocate for sustainable agriculture and industrial hemp. Shawn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Michael, from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So why hemp?
Oldest fiber, seed, and oil crop in recorded history. Popular Mechanics in 1937, a non-biased political publication called it the new billion-dollar crop in 1937. And that was only with part of the potential of production of what could be done and manufactured with it. So I guess greed. The Lord doesn't make a mistake when he makes a plant. And this is the oldest fiber, seed, and oil crop, true cannabis hemp, that's been used for millennium, from rope to canvas, cannabis onward. And I was at a concert in Philadelphia near the Spectrum. I saw someone's concert T-shirt, an older fellow, and it showed all these different uses of cannabis hemp. And I was like, wow. Amazing, and did my own research, ended up finding an original copy of Jack Hare's book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes. He went into the prohibition mentality, the issue of the misnaming of the plant, to create this narrative that this plant was destroying America. And lo and behold, we found out that there was a lot of history to this plant and a lot of misinformation. You know, we talk about misinformation now. We had it back in the 1920s and 1930s, and we're actually kind of rediscovering this plant now. And they're, to a sense, reinventing the wheel. And I'm here to kind of help shape that future.
Mm-hmm. And that book is The Emperor Wears No Clothes, Hemp and the Marijuana Conspiracy?
Yeah, that's a Jack Hare book, and back in the day, I've got a bunch of versions of it because I collect anything historical, and they really did a great job. Now I don't think it's been published for a number of years. I used to sell actually the physical book itself, and really amazing because I ended up collecting some of those original artifacts that Jack Hare had discovered, and also showing the film that he had uncovered in the congressional archives when the government actually denied making this film, Hemp for Victory, documenting why the farmers during World War II should be growing hemp because the Japanese had cut off our cheap supply of jute and manila hemp from the Philippines, and all of a sudden we needed it for parachute cordage, rope, the whole 9 yards. And so it was Hemp for Victory, as they extolled in a film that, again, the government actually denied. I think it was the 1970s when Jack was doing his research in the congressional archives.
Yeah. So why doesn't the government want us to grow hemp? Because, I mean, it's starting to be available now, but still the regulation, like in Ohio, it's still almost impossible for this average farmer to grow it without a lot of prohibitive regulation.
I've dealt with it in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And to, again, there's so much common sense, but we have a tendency to want to reinvent the wheel. And I guess that question is politics equals control. And so we've let politics get involved with this. Again, it's not necessarily the whole government that wants to ban hemp foods, but certain agencies have been perpetuating myths continuously. So I've been a little bit more radical in my approach in the sense of where is the problem coming from? Well, it comes from the Drug Enforcement Agency, from the federal level. And so I'm a an advocate for abolishing the DEA. The hemp industry, the farmers, we've always been put on the offense or the defense. You got to pay this license, got to do this, got to do that. You got to prove that your plant's not going to affect somebody psychologically because there's THC in it. Oh, the boogeyman, which again is part of pharmacopoeia. That's part of medicine. And so again, you just have this fear that is still being perpetuated from the old ignorance versus embracing the global awareness that we knew of true cannabis hemp. Der Hanf in German, Chanvre in French, Asa in Japanese, Jitman Chinese, Canyamo in Espanol, Kunapia in Russian and Italian. So they knew cannabis. It wasn't marijuana. That's again the 1968 marijuana treaty. It's through a federal treaty that they're all of a sudden calling this plant marijuana, identifying it differently, and then proving that you can't be growing it and it's bad, and trying to abolish it. So they're trying to create rules and regulations for hemp, true cannabis hemp. Whether it's industrial or used for medicinal aspects. And it could be complicated, but it does not have to be that way. We have the pharmacopoeia, we have the history. In Ohio, I've known Donnie Wursthafter from the Ohio Hempery since I started in the early 1990s. So in 1997 was the first time I was in the newspaper. April 3rd, 1997, Lancaster newspaper at Acres USA, set up as the Pennsylvania Hemp Industries Information Association at that time, selling Donnie Wursthafter's Ohio Hempery lotions, soaps, lip balms, showing the rope, showing the history, because he has the largest collection in Athens, Ohio, at his museum, the Cannabis Museum, and I have a license agreement with him to be able to disseminate that information and get it out there and show people what we used to do prior to the Marijuana Tax Act of the 1930s that kind of messed it all up.
Yeah. Okay, for folks that don't understand, talk to us a little bit about, you've got the THC and you got the CBD and then you have the fiber hemp. So there's many differences, and I'm not going to dispute because I know there's medicinal aspects of both sides, but kind of give us those three aspects.
Well, let's think of it historically, right? Canvas is cannabis. Cannabis. That's fabric right there. The northern latitude, so we're in Lancaster County, so we're in about a Spanish latitude. If you take that, but you look at the northern latitude, that's where Hanf in German, hemp was grown for the ropes that the Romans were using as they conquered Europe, okay, for this plant-based fiber. That they could use for textiles. That would have been, back in the day, they would have made no difference between flax or hemp for linen. This was a production of fiber or fabric, but it was mainly in the northern latitudes that or other animal fibers were used, such as wool and things of that nature. As you get closer to the equator, you have this issue with heat. So the heat will transform your cannabis plant into a flowering plant if it's not grown properly, use the right seeds, et cetera, et cetera. The biggest reason that's doing it is because when that plant ends up flowering, it creates seeds. The resin from that flower helps protect the seed from the UV ultraviolet effects. So that's then when you look at the aspect of the fiber grown as an 8 to 18 feet tall plant in 30 to 90 days, basically about 90 days. Then you're looking at fiber. That's about 300 plants per meter. If this was grown specifically for medicine, it'd be 2 plants per meter. It would look more and grown more like a Christmas tree, so the plant could stretch out and have lots of nodules and lots of branches to create flower, bud, Flower. Now, you can grow industrial hemp close together as a short crop and grow it and harvest the seed. And that's the seed that my company needs because it's crushed for oil, just like flax. And the meal is milled into flour, Flour. Then we get into the aspect of hemp that's providing plant-based proteins, vitamins and minerals, vitamin E, potassium, magnesium, zinc, iron, things that are good for men, women, phytonutrients from a plant-based source, which you don't have to mill like you have to mill flaxseed because it's a digestible Ediston protein. So first off, hemp also think of like growing roses. Just because you have a rose, or like I joke with people, just because you have a seed does not mean you get good weed. If you're growing for medicine, it's like growing roses. You continue to develop it. Okay, and that's how they're growing the flowering part for medicine, and that goes into CBD aspects or whole plant. And I am a whole plant advocate. I never got into this issue of the isolation of the plant because the plant works synergistically best together. But there is power in CBD. And we see that mainly with animals versus people. I mean, you see it in people, but animals are not psychosomatic like people are. You know, if you give your horse CBD at the right doses, and that's what it's all about, it's dosage, the horse will calm down so you can put those shoes on it. The dog will calm down from being hyper, or you may notice that the dysplasia in the hips is not as bad. The dog seems a little younger, a little friskier. Well, that's actually worked, and it's the same aspect for people. And so that's we're getting into the uses of the plant versus the identification and how to grow it. And I'm not a botanist. I'm not an agronomist. I'm just an advocate that's learned from a lot of different teachers, and I'm passing that information on.
Gotcha. So then let's talk a little bit about like the different products that you offer. We met at the conference in Pennsylvania. The
Natural Hope,
yes.
Natural Hope Herbal Conference, and that was their Vendor Appreciation Day.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting story. That's Ben's group. And I'll just take you in the sense of the stories because this is such a circular story over years. Rick is one of the owners and one of the formulators there. He actually helped put that together. I met Rick about 20 years ago when he was a purchasing manager at Dutch Valley Foods in Berks County, Pennsylvania. At that time, my office was located down near New Holland, Bluebell area. And I went to visit him because I was trying to sell hemp seed to him. And Dutch Valley is one of the largest food distributors that sells to other stores. They sell cheaper than some manufacturers because of their buying volume. Anyways, I meet with Rick years ago when I'm down there. They never do any business with me. I find out that they are buying hemp seed, packaging it. I see it out on the market. It's so, whatever. Years later, and this is maybe 4 years later, I do business with Natural Hope Herbals because they make our topicals and tinctures with CBD brought in from Steve Groff's farm, which is another connection from Lancaster County, PA. Anyways, I walk in the door. There's Rick, and Rick puts his hand out. Shawn, we just weren't ready. And that's about this whole issue with
Mm-hmm.
hemp and timing and my journey over 30 years. And I kind of feel like the Forrest Gump of hemp because when I was doing in 1997 as Acres USA, I was representing companies such as Donnie Worst Chapter at the Ohio Hempery, Virgin Body Care, lip balm soaps and lotions, Sensibility soaps and lotions, companies that I was working with and being a cheerleader and setting up. So at that time in 1997, Ralph Amato comes down. He sees me in the newspaper. Hey, my name's Ralph Amato. I make pretzels. I was like, food. Everybody eats food.
Mm-hmm.
How many hemp jeans do I own or hemp shoes or anything of that nature? As a guy, that might be a once a year purchase. But food we eat every day. And they were making at No Problem Inc. hemp sourdough pretzels
Mm.
with one of the oldest bakeries in the United States. Now it's one of four hand rolled, stone hearth baked sourdough pretzels that's made. And we continue to make the original hemp sourdough pretzel. And that's done with the hemp flour, FLOUR, the grain of the hemp versus the seed that we would refer to in the sense of planting
Mm-hmm.
or pressing for oil. So that was my start. At that time, Les Stark, who was working for his uncle's vending business, came in and saw me. And Les Stark is recognized as one of the preeminent historians of hemp in Lancaster County because he's written and done so much research on the farms and what they were growing and did research on the wills. And so I sell his book, Hempstone Heritage. And this is all online at lancastertradinghouse.com so you can see everything that we're doing. From there, right up the road was Dutch Country Soft Pretzels Bakery. Soft pretzels versus hard pretzels because sourdough hard pretzels are a niche. And combining with hemp flour that has no gluten and other aspects is a different product. But soft pretzels, we added more hemp seed, hemp flour, and hemp oil because this is a baked and frozen item. So we're preserving the nutrients. At issue, as a small company, as I started with Smoke and Mirrors 30 years ago, the money that I had, I made mistakes over time. So I've just survived. And when I had just bought the company, the government decided to ban hemp foods from 2000 to 2004. And at that time, I had joined Ralph Amato's company at No Problem Inc. to work with him. That was my headquarters. I was fascinated with what was going on, learning. We went to Bachman Pretzels. We went to other places because he had financed what was going on and had already put in $25,000 into his business to start this sourdough through No Problem Inc. And what they were doing, they were buying textiles from Romania through another partner of mine who's who's gone, and China, and they were making clothing sewn by Mennonite women for him up in New Holland, and they were doing wedding dresses and things of that nature. Then the focus switched to pretzels and food, and that's where I went into his office. But during the time that the government was trying to ban hemp foods, Ralph's like, I'm done. We got a subpoena from the DEA. They wanted our hemp seed that we had brought in from Canada, all our hemp hearts. And we had been at the Hemp Industries Conference in California in 1999 or 2000. Richard Rose, who's the original hemp nut, who was a bigwig in California, he was on Rosie O'Donnell's show in 1999 talking about hemp. He did tofu. He had all kinds of money. He was one of the top 500 companies growing at that time as a hemp business. He introduced us the shelled hemp hearts because the first time out them made their pretzels, they used a seed meal. which again, you're taking the seed and milling it and not grounding the flour. So they worked with Anderson pretzels at that time and made nuggets, but they were almost like dog nuggets because they were crunchy and they were hard. And they did not have the business appearance when they worked into Anderson pretzels. And those guys never wanted to do business with them again. But that was mass manufacturing a pretzel that should have been our winner. Fast forward years, 2005, 2006, I went back in to work with Anderson Pretzels, and we did a peanut butter filled hemp pretzel nugget with them with no fructose corn syrup, no yeast in it. We used hemp flour, hemp seed, and hemp oil. It was phenomenal. And they did that pretzel for me for years. And then when the peanut scare happened and all those people died, I called Anderson Pretzels during the Pennsylvania Farm Show that we've been doing for 14 years, every year talking about hemp. And they're like, Shawn, we can't do any more pretzels for you. Our minimum run is 18,000 pounds, and we've been running 5,000-pound batches for you for 5 years now, and you need to step it up. And people were dying over peanut allergies, and I couldn't afford to do it. And I was like, I'm done. But anyways, that's going ahead of the story. But we went from soft pretzels to mustard, horseradish, hemp, and honey mustard with another manufacturer, which was a phenomenal product that I had in Wegmans grocery stores through a distributor. We went into baklava. I met a young lady at the Hershey Food Show. We were substituting the pecans and walnuts for the hearts. I was making the baklava through another bakery, vegan, and also traditional. It was phenomenal, but was so expensive to sell. And then we had the 2008 financial crunch. And I've gone through so much stuff prior to that it's just been going like this up and down. And then even going through COVID for 4 years. I survived this, and then all of a sudden you can't do that. And it's just been a tough road to hoe, but there are a lot of different products. And right now I have hemp fiber, hemp fabric that I brought up. We had met to show the Amish versus going with CBD. The Amish got lots of money, similar to what happened with the Jerusalem artichoke. That was another thing that I was talking about early 90s when we were talking to Amish that they had been burnt. That was going to be the next moneymaker. Well, I was focusing on industrial hemp, but word got out about CBD. You had Floyd Landis, who was one of the bicyclists involved with the Tour de France that was making Floyd's of Leadville his own line of CBD athletic products. You had all these other people saying we need CBD, and everybody grew it, and the market tanked. So my focus from the beginning has been industrial hemp and respecting the whole use of the plant for personal or commercial use. But this is what we've been going against or bumping heads with, whether it's been on the state or the federal level. And that's my thing about abolishing the DEA, because they add nothing but confusion to this plant, and they want to reinvent the plant versus using what the U.S. Department of Agriculture has already documented in 1913, 1918, 1890s, 1930s. I collect all those historical books on hemp. I even have that online at lancastertradinghouse.com, so you can read the 1913 version of what they've done for hemp back at that time. You can see the new billion-dollar crop in 1937. Look at the last paragraph and notice that the issue of hemp and marijuana seems to be confused. And that was done on purpose. Because I have a 1916 or 1918 U.S. Department of Agriculture bulletin on drug crops grown in the U.S., and it shows cannabis flower, Flower, being grown for medicine, sold at 36 cents a pound. And this is because they didn't have the testing equipment that the Israeli scientists had discovered in the 1960s, 67 or 68, that isolated tetrahydrocannabinoid, isolated all these cannabinoids within the plant, that all of a sudden identified what gave people that feeling of high, what gave people these different benefits. Again, God doesn't make a mistake when he makes a plant. It's man in the prohibitionist mentality that disrupts the market. And so now we've had industrial hemp legalized for years through the Pennsylvania Farm Act, yet there's still confusion, testing issues, this, that. And I'm like, this is silly. This is stupid. This is hurting the farmers. You know, people are losing their land because they don't have any investment dollars, just like my company does not have the investment dollars. And I refuse to go to a bank to pay interest that could be changed at any time to lose everything that I've built over the last 30 years. And that is capitalization is one of the needs. And to get the government out of what they're trying to do. In Pennsylvania, the federal government offered us $2 million as a grant. And we met in Hazleton through the economic engine. And I supplied pretzels up there to that event. I was invited through another person, but nothing happened. It's crickets. The Chinese put $10 million into a North Carolina plant 2 years ago. I was just down in North Carolina talking to a buddy that owns East Coast Hemp Supply, Keith Dunn in Dunn, North Carolina, and he didn't even know about it. So here you have outside influences, because the Chinese never stopped growing hemp. Even with those treaties that were done in the 60s, they never stopped growing. The Russians on the communist side never stopped growing hemp. But when the Berlin Wall fell down and everything else has changed, even in Romania, the Chinese now have gone in and bought all that textiles equipment and shipped it over to China. My former partner, Steve Logothetis at Hemp Basics, he was the OG of hemp, him and his partner for 35 years, because he spoke Romanian. He was in Romania and China, and they brought in all the textiles. And so he supplied AC Moore and Michaels with the twine, the books, all kinds of stuff that you used to see, which you don't really see as much now. He called me last year and said, Shawn, I'm closing shop. He's in New Jersey. I went up to New Jersey, picked everything that he had up and brought it back, because it was my 17th year or 18th year at the Pennsylvania Farm Show. The CBD market had tanked, and I needed to show the farmers the fiber and the other aspects that they need to focus on to keep their land. And that's where we go back to the same thing. You need a fifth and a sixth rotation crop. You need more than corn, tobacco, soy, and wheat. And hemp is an excellent rotation crop, just in itself.
Gotcha. Are you tired of guessing how to price your farm fresh vegetables? Stop second guessing and start maximizing your profits with our vegetable pricing guide and calculator. With our guide and calculator, pricing your product becomes clear and simple. Whether you sell at farmers markets, a farm store, or anywhere else, our resources and tutorials will help you set prices based on your production costs and desired profit margins. Don't let uncertainty dictate your pricing strategy. Join countless farmers who've transformed their pricing game with the Vegetable Pricing Guide. Visit us now at growingfarmers.com/veggie guide to take control of your profitability. Don't wait. Start pricing smarter today. So what is currently, like in Pennsylvania, what's the current growing conditions like? I know we talked about Steve. Steve's doing a lot of growing. Who else is doing, and what's kind of like the current market?
Well, let me kind of digress a little bit. Floyd's of Leadville. Floyd was a Mennonite family farmer, bicyclist, tied in with the Tour de France, put in a lot of money in processing CBD. 2 years ago, I helped them during COVID liquidate $1 million worth of equipment for processing because they had so much CBD that they are just storing it instead of keeping an operation running and costing them thousands of dollars a day to keep it up and running. They can always reopen when they want to, but they closed up. I got a call during COVID from a guy from Afghanistan that was looking for hemp flour, FLOUR, and that was July 4th during COVID. They contacted me. I went to my cold storage facility that I have a relationship with him, and in the back door, got him 25 pounds of hemp flour, FLOUR. Went to York, Pennsylvania. They drove up from Washington, D.C., paid me for the hemp flour. We're talking. I'm like, so what were you guys doing before? They want to use this flour for their bread. This is our food, not bombs section on showing where we can go with the grain. They said we were growing CBD. I was like, oh, you helped tank the worldwide market for CBD. So they shipped that hemp flour on a plane to Kabul in Afghanistan. They made naan bread, a flatbread, 10% hemp flour. They had it sent to Turkey, had it tested, 10% nutritional, and the people liked the taste. And that's a key thing. It reminded them of the ancient grain. This is Afghanistan, the hills, the mountains, where they would grow cannabis. That was a big area. That's a big issue. So they want to get into agricultural hemp too. But lo and behold, they're still fighting. We have troops there. We sent troops because of 911 to the middle of nowhere in Afghanistan, and it's been disrupted ever since. And that's a sad part of it. So going back to Pennsylvania, Steve Groff had grown CBD and does, and we use it in our topical and some other avenues. But we have Larry Serbin from Hemp Traders, who I've known for 25 years, from California, that holds the Guinness World Book of Records for growing the largest industrial hemp plant 23 feet tall. He is working with Steve in Lancaster County as we speak, and they're growing and focusing on industrial hemp. Larry has those connections. He was Steve's counterpart from New Jersey, but he was California. And so he is working to help with the contracts. And I am showing the Amish that this is the way we need to go versus wearing polyester. Polyester clothes, if you're in a fire, they're going to melt. Hemp fabric, anti-wicking, antimicrobial, UV protectant, okay, all natural. Warmer in the winter, cooler in the summer. The Mujahideen in Afghanistan, who fought the Soviets first and then fought the Americans, wore hemp in their hats, their clothing, because it was anti-wicking. It would release the heat or the sweat. Sweat during the day, you don't want to be freezing at night. And that was the benefit, and they wore hemp in Afghanistan. So this is where we need to go, but it takes major money, and this is a long-term investment. This is not a short-term, and we live in a short-term investment world versus looking at the big picture. And that's why hemp is so important to reincorporate into our growth. Historically, in Lancaster County, when hemp was down, they grew tobacco. When tobacco was down, they grew hemp. After the sailing ships were done with Robert Fulton and the steamship that came out of Lancaster County, the demand for hemp dropped, increasingly dropped. So why? Because they weren't using as much canvas for the sailing ships. They didn't have the schooners that they had used before, where with each, the USS Constitution would have used 60 tons of hemp rigging twice annually.
Wow.
That's coming from Lancaster County, etc. Boston, New York, all those harbors. So now We're doing what Henry Ford is doing with chemergy. Anything you can make from a hydrocarbon, you can make from a carbohydrate. And he was a chemergist. And they talk about cars being made with hemp. Well, I gave that collection of information to a local Amishman who I knew because we were dealing with his brother to get raw milk from our daughter 18 years ago. His brother makes tools. He took the information. His hemp shovels are 25% hemp, 75% plastic. They're stronger. They're carbon negative. They're doing exactly what Henry Ford was doing, and I didn't have to pay to get it done. He had the impetus to make the molds and get it done. And we have Frisbees that are made with hemp. And what we're trying to show again is the way to use this plant. We need textiles, but that's very scientific, and it's a lot of equipment. And we need decortication, and that can be done. Those decorticators were done during the 1900s. And so again, they're reinventing this technology, and everybody's trying to control the technology. We had that with our own Steve Groff, York County, which was Steve Groff North America. And that was the white rose and the red rose. Well, he got overfinanced and he's no longer with us. He ended up, unfortunately, taking his own life. That was a lot of financial pressure. But Steve Groff, Lancaster, is the guy that's been with me since pre-911 on that end. And he is a regenerative agriculture farmer, and he is an influencer. And I think he's doing a great job helping the other farmers get an idea. Do we do the cart or the horse? Horse or the cart? Because that's what it's always been. If you're going to grow hemp, what are you going to do with it? You've got to process it within a 60-mile radius of where you're going to grow it, or you're going to lose money for logistics and gas. And you can be doing hemp biodiesel 3 months before 911, and this film is on my website. You can see Grayson and Kelly Ziegler, who I met at a normal event in D.C., who powered a Mercedes-Benz on 13,000 miles of hemp biodiesel fuel 3 months before 911. And we're in the newspaper, and it's all documented on the website. No war, no pollution, no fighting over oil. And we went to Steve Groff's farm, and this is what kicked everything in motion. And when you think about it, the farmers in self-sustainability should be producing their own hemp biodiesel fuel to run their tractors. Any old diesel, the diesel Jetta I have, 2006, can be converted to run on hemp biodiesel. Okay, so this is the part of sustainability. Instead of pulling all the energy from the ground, let's get it from a renewable agriculture resource like hemp. So this is where the farmers are going. But I've pitched to Rodale Institute years ago when Maya Rodale was in charge. I've talked to Delaware Valley, their president, their vice president, a teacher. Crickets. It'll be my 19th year set up at the Pennsylvania Farm Show in January if I pay the booth rent and get our act together. But I've been right on my wit's end. I've been talking and preaching and advocating and crusading for years with no major financial money. And I'm very embarrassed that I'm not successful, but I see the pot of gold at the end of this rainbow, and I think I just need to hang in. And that's the part, and try to avoid the gatekeepers. And that's the political part, and that's why I ran for Congress in 2016 as a libertarian. I'm not a Coke or Pepsi candidate. These guys that are inventing rules, these private political organizations that are choosing leaders for us that don't represent what we do on the ground level. And so I've tried to attack this on a couple different avenues, but it's not been easy. And thus, when you ask me about what Pennsylvania is doing, I'm not in control of what other farmers are doing, but I see farmers like Steve Groff and others and Rick Hess up at Natural Hope in Millersburg and these others saying, yes, let's focus on industrial hemp. Let's put this foundation that Shawn's been laying and get it going. And the focus should be on grain. Grain is where the money is versus CBD flour. And it's even more than it would be for fiber because we're looking at gluten-free. How many people do you know that can't eat wheat? We can make a wheat-free soft pretzel that we've done, and you will see videotape of people in the past, but the bakery will not make it for me now. My issue is we need to own the bakery. You know, I work with different facilities, but they can only do certain things for you. And that's where the Lancaster Trading House comes into it. So hopefully that kind of answered your question.
Yeah. Now I know on the flour side, the fiber side too, is that you can make like hempcrete. I know hempcrete is a thing.
Bingo.
Yeah.
So this is the bark. So when that 8 to 18 feet tall plant is done, you're going to want to red it. Formerly, in the old days, and I have this in Italy, they would put it into ponds and soak it, and it would stink. And you have to get rid of that water. You would field red it here in Pennsylvania. Cut it, lay it on the ground, flip it, and let it rot or ret then. When you break it, that's the old hand breaks. That's where you're getting the bark. That bark is used in press board for a tree-free board substitute, and the Chinese have been doing it with non-formaldehyde glue because that was always the issue initially. You mix that with your Crete mix with a non-Portland based lime Crete mix. It's some Belgian, the secret is on that stuff with hardening. But it's kind of similar, but not to what the Romans were doing with volcanic ash. But here you're using the bark in that. So here again, you could be looking at construction, and that's a form fill. You're putting your forms out, you're filling it, tamping it, it's hardening. It's almost petrifying. When you're done with that building, tear that building down, take your supports out, put it back on your field. So you can renew that versus putting concrete waste in the landfill. Here's another technicality. It's all zoning issues. It's all approval by the different federal regulatory for building agency. The French call it iso-chanvre, and they always build hemp. You know, they never stopped working with hempcrete. Papel, that's paper. Hemp papers, rolling papers are done with hemp. We have, and I used to sell the Declaration of Independence printed on hemp paper, printed on a Versatility letterpress printer done from a fella, John Stahl, in California years ago. But the issue nowadays, it doesn't run through inkjet printers good. That's for the pen and ink, and then hang it up and let it dry. It is archival, but it doesn't stop people from making it, or make that paper and put it in your refrigeration, and it absorbs molecular issues and smells within your refrigeration units. Crane and Company in Massachusetts was using it because they used to make the dollar bills, and the dollar bills were done from recycled fabric, which used to be hemp, because that was a canvas and things of that nature. So a little bit more background in the sense of the plant. Yes, hemp concrete. Graphene for batteries. There's another key theme. Graphene for batteries. I learned that in Kentucky at a hemp industries conference that I attended, I think during COVID or right before COVID, maybe 2019 or something of that nature. But there's a lot to do with it. You know, in the sense they called it the new billion-dollar crop. The only thing you really can't make is glass. You can't make steel. But building material, energy, fuel, fiber, food, that's where the key things are.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit. You've mentioned a couple different products, and where can folks get them from you? So talk a little bit about kind of like the different products you offer and what the best way for folks to get them from you is.
My biggest issue has been direct store distribution. I had one Garden Spot food distributors that was bought out. It's River Valley Holdings, Caballero Foods. They would get my mustard by the pallet. I'm shipping direct. I'm not going through Amazon. I'm not going through these gatekeepers, because even online you have issues with hemp or cannabis and shadowing and people not finding you, call 1-800-USE-HEMP.
Okay.
That's in the United States. That's my number, 873-4367. But it's best online. And I have one website called Lancaster Trading House.com, but it is Hempzels underneath there.com and natalieschoice.com. Because under Natalie's Choice, which is the yin to the yang of our pretzel business, we take the seed and make a nut butter from it. So we're doing the hearts combined with roasted peanuts to do a higher protein peanut butter, like we do a higher protein soft pretzel. And we do a horseradish, hemp, and honey mustard, but we do those in minis and we do them in 8-ounce jars. But I just, it's better for me to ship direct versus trying to sell it to a store where it sits on their shelf and they're waiting for you to walk in and either know what you want or don't. And if it doesn't sell, then they want to give it back to the manufacturer. And I can't afford to do that either. I just don't have the capitalization. But I also have a license from Robbie Anderman from Cool Hemp Ice Cream in Canada that they were making up till 2008 when they went under because of financial collapse. Same thing, they had no capitalization. But they made a wonderful dairy-free ice cream that we have the commercial license to for the packaging, et cetera, that we could be making here in Pennsylvania or Ohio because there is a freeze company there that supplies, they're based in Ohio. I wrote to their president, and also Tamaqua, PA, InstaFreeze. They make all the ice cream for them. And I've been trying to work with them, so we could end up offering this dairy-free ice cream. My goal is at the 19th farm show that we do in 2025 is to have these introduced at their food court. I don't think we're going to be there yet, but it's good to set goals. But yeah, definitely direct. And I've tried to set it up where we pick up free shipping. In Ohio, that's nice. California, it doesn't always work depending on the items and depending on the heat. And Alaska and Hawaii, they've got to pay a little bit of the shipping cost. But I am trying to pick up free shipping because that always seems to be a gripe. Either lower your prices and do shipping or raise your prices and have free shipping. And that's what I'm trying right now. After $25 purchase, we have a phenomenal topical hemp and heat, which the place that we met at manufactures. And that's a deep tissue rub with the addition of 40,000 SHUs of cayenne and 600 milligrams of CBD from Steve Gross Farm. Phenomenal product, we sell out of. But that's all available online. Everything online has the ingredients listed, the price on there, the sizes, videos. I am trying to make the platform worth people to go there. We will be setting up, and I'm working on it as we speak, an e-learning resource center. So you can see genetics, growth, how to use seed, how to put it into your diet, the whole 9 yards. I figured if I'm not going to work with the universities, we might as well start creating our own curriculum through the Cannabis Museum for history so people can view and do it themselves and do their own due diligence and confront their own local authorities to say, hey, this is natural. This is something we should be able to do because it is all local. That is the key to any farmer with his land, is staying local. And just say no is KNOW for knowledge, not Nancy Reagan, NO for ignorance and intolerance.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, so LancasterTradingHouse.com, and you've got all your products there. You've got a lot of products. You've got webbing, you've got hemp spread, you've got the mustard, the rubs.
I have some gloves.
Pretzels.
Now, the webbing is from my former partner. The textiles, when that's gone, it's gone. Pretzels we can make again.
Yeah.
Certain things we can make, but the Frisbees are up there with and without our logo. They're available wholesale if you have any issues. But when they're gone, those Frisbees, we have about 700 left. They're gone. That was from iHemp Manufacturing in Michigan, who also closed their doors. They could only last for so long. I just don't pay myself, so I can continue on.
Yes. And you got twine, because actually my wife got some of the twine, and so my daughter's been making these little bracelets out of that twine, which has been fun. And
I have
she's
4 pallets of twine.
Okay.
So that's definitely something that we can shake and bake, rock and roll. Think of your projects, netting, whatever you want, your shops, things of that nature. But the twine is there in lots of different, 13 or 14 different colors, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, lots of options there. And your phone number is 1-800-USE-HEMP. That's awesome.
873-4367, correct.
Gotcha. Yep. Shawn, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely, Michael. Nice to meet you. Keep rocking and rolling. I've subscribed to your channel.
All right, thank you.
So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.